Hi guys and girls, and welcome to the first ever Didn't You Have That When You Were 12 podcast. So this is a podcast about collectors, retro game collectors, chatting to me, nerding out with me about their retro video game collections, why they got into collecting, how they go about collecting, what some of their games mean to them. You know, good old chit chat about our favourite subject, retro gaming or video gaming in general. And in this first episode, I had the honor of chatting to Alex Boz, creator, editor-in-chief of www.ausretrogamer.com, which is a fantastic website about retro video gaming. I recently moved over to Australia from the UK. My wife is Australian, and we moved from London to Sydney. And before we made the move, I kind of checked out what was going on in the retro video gaming scene in Australia, because obviously in London, in the UK, it's huge, and I was just a little bit concerned that maybe there wasn't such a big thing happening over here. But there is, and Ausretrogamer, the website, was the sort of beacon of light for me when I was moving over, to say that there is indeed a very big and vibrant retro video gaming scene here in Australia, which got me very excited about making the move. So obviously I had to get in touch with Alex and say, hey man, do you want to be in this podcast that I'm starting up? And he very kindly said yes. So please sit back and enjoy episode 1 of Didn't You Have That When You Were 12 podcast. I'd never heard of the Vectrex until I stumbled upon it. I think I was looking on a cash converter's website back in the UK. Suddenly this ad came up for like old home arcade back from 1980, whatever it was. And I just looked at it and went, what is that? That is like a mini, it's a mini arcade machine. And it's also it's a vector-based machine. Oh my god, that is the most beautiful thing ever. And then I had a look on eBay, because I suddenly then learnt about how, you know, you had to get the overlays for the games, and I started looking at the games range and found all these kind of videos on YouTube from collectors and stuff, and I was like, how did I never know about this system? How did that happen? Because I only learned about it like 6 months ago. But the Vectrex is like, I love my Vectrex. It's a beautiful, beautiful machine. What have you got on it?
I've got quite a few games, and I've also found I can't remember the guy's name, but he actually created all the games on one cart.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and he was actually selling his leftover carts for like minimal amount, and they go for $200 plus. And I remember getting them for like 50. Um, and I
Wow.
thought, I've lucked out on this. But look, probably the most expensive game or that I've got on the Vectrex, and probably out of all my games, is Protector and Yasi, or yet another Space Invaders.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely brilliant on the Vectrex, and the sound, seriously, I thought I love Sid, but the actual sound chip in the Vectrex, I could not believe what I was hearing. It is absolutely brilliant. It's actually almost on par with anything I've heard on the 64.
Really, because most of the games I've got don't have much of a soundtrack. I mean, the sound effects, yes, but soundtrack, music-wise, I've not really.
Yeah, look, the original games from back in the day, they don't. But all the ones that have been created, I guess, from the late 90s, early 2000s onwards, which
Like homebrew games, or
they're actually homebrew, but they're actually commercially made. So or they're commercial grade.
right.
So I've got a few. Like I've got a Frogger game. Can't remember the name. I think it might be Vect. It's got Vect in the actual name in it, but it's like a Frogger. But so the fact that all these people are still making games for it just blows my mind. Same thing with the Atari Jaguar and the Dreamcast, and the fact that these communities exist around the world that create games for these systems is just mind blowing, and it is absolutely great. But I'm glad to hear that you've got one, a Vectrex.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I've got I went a bit crazy on it, because I think I've got about 7 or 8 games on it. Things like Web War, or Web Wars even. Now I'm at a bit of a disadvantage at the moment because I only moved to Australia 4 weeks ago. All of my worldly belongings are actually on a boat at the moment, including my entire retro game collection.
Oh wow. Well,
So
hopefully it arrives safely.
yeah, exactly. Could you imagine if that tanker or that container falls off the boat? That's it. Game over, literally. So if I had them in front of me now, I could remember everything I've got. But I have got Spike, which is just hilarious. Have you played Spike on the Vectrex?
I have.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember the actual gameplay.
So you play the little characters like a little star, and you have to. It's very simple sort of platformer. We got the 3 levels of the platforms, and they're scrolling through the screen, and you have to collect the key to then go through the door. At the beginning of each level, you got his girlfriend Molly gets kidnapped, and of course it's the only game that actually has some pre-recorded sound where he goes "Eek, Spike! Oh no, Molly!" Do you remember that? Like, it's hilarious sort of like use of the sound. I guess you're right. Actually, the sound check it is pretty impressive for what it is. For them to be able to sample sort of voice and put it into the game and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Didn't take advantage of it, and I don't understand why, because I just thought it was some simplistic sound chip in it, but I think it's got a Yamaha chip in it. But yeah, it's actually pumps out some really meaty sound. So the fact that the guys that are making games for it now are doing it, it's just amazing. But
Man, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm gonna have to check out some of these new games because
yeah,
I didn't realize that people were still making for the Vectrex. I knew there was still some home brewers for like the C64 and all the other kind of like systems, but for the Vectrex,
yeah, we've come to the right place. Look, I love my history, and I even as a kid, because Australia actually paralleled what was happening in the UK. So the NES wasn't big here. The Commodore 64 was. The Amiga was. We didn't have any ZX Spectrums, but I've been told that they were available, but I never saw any. Amstrad to a certain extent. The Master System, when it came out, that was definitely, it gained, traction here. The NES did, but not till way late. And then obviously when the 16-bit consoles came out, they were huge here. And that's when the computers sort of died, as in the Amigas and the STs and whatnot.
Yeah.
In the early 90s. So and look, and we just had your magazines here. So British
Zap,
magazines. So,
yeah.
Zap 64, which was then 64 and Amiga. Your Commodore, CMVG. Just.
Oh man, it's a regular home from home. That's great.
Yeah. So look, Jazz Ridnor was my favourite, journalist and editor. So wherever he went to whatever magazine, I just followed. And even though I used to buy magazines from the US as well, they were too serious.
Right.
And they would waffle on, and the content, I'm sorry if people are hearing this, but the waffle, it wasn't engaging. Whereas the British writing was so engaging, it was so funny. It was there was ribald humor in there. There was, it was just great to read, and I would absolutely grab the magazine and read it from cover to cover. Whereas the magazines from the US, I would skip. I would just flip pages because I'll be like, oh, more writing or more words that, I just want to know about this game. I don't need 10 pages of it, right?
Yeah.
So it was things like that. But look, one thing is we used to get the magazines 3 months after the fact. So I'm reading this, in March, but it's the January version or January issue. So we were always 3 months behind. So I guess they were coming on a slow boat from the UK, and and they weren't cheap. So obviously the British pound being so strong, but I'll be paying anywhere between $6 and $10 for a magazine that was probably about £1 or £2, I think.
Do you still collect them? Do you have a collection of Zap magazines or?
I do, and what I did was about probably in the mid 2000s. I remember going to Mum's and Dad's place, and my dad said, "Oh, you've still got your magazines here." Because what I did was, for some reason, I put them all in boxes and I taped them up, made them all airtight. And I remember saying, "Oh, you know what, Dad? Toss them out."
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah, I had full collection of Zap, CMVG. What else did I have? Did I have Your 64? I had a ton of magazines, and they were and all the supplements as well with them. So Mean Machine, the little Go that was in the CMVG. That was, I think, when the portable systems came out. That is a supplement. Yeah, I just said, Dad, toss them out.
Oh my
And he said, "Oh,
gosh.
are you sure? There's plenty of room in the garage." I said, "No, no, toss them out." And I regret that because I actually kept them for so long, and then I thought, "Oh, we'll throw them out."
So, oh gosh, I thought that story was going to end with your dad saying, "No, I'm not going to do it. I think you should keep them," but you actually tossed them out. Oh my god.
Yeah, he did because I was adamant that no, no, throw them out. And so yeah, I'm slowly rebuilding
Wow.
my Zap and CMVG collection. But I love those magazines. They were yeah, brilliant magazines,
Yeah,
and Mean
that.
Machines as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
them. And then Edge. Edge was a little bit more serious, but I guess I was getting older, so I actually appreciated the content. But yeah, those yeah, I got my information out of those mags.
Well, of course, because this is back in the day when there's no internet, you know what I mean? That's how we all learned about video games and what was coming out and what was happening was through actual magazines. Couldn't just jump onto YouTube or whatever just to kind of, or game sites like Ausretrogamer, for instance. You couldn't just jump onto to the web. You had to buy the. I mean, I was a fan of the Zapper, especially with the cover art and everything as well, because they always used to. I can't remember the artist's name, but they used to have a.
Ollie Frey.
That's it.
The guy's a genius.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. Do you know about the portable Commodore 64, the
No,
SX, the
no,
executive?
no.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got one of those, and that is definitely one of my holy grails.
Hmm.
And I must admit, I don't have my 1541 drives out because they take too much room. So what I do is when I want to play a game on a floppy, I pull out the SX64, the Executive 64,
Hmm.
which is a luggable portable computer, which you probably need Arnold Schwarzenegger arms to carry it. Very, 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 very heavy. But it's got like oh, I think the screens are around 5 or 6 inches, so it's pretty small.
Mm.
And that's where I test my floppies. So it's actually got a built-in drive, and it's actually got a cart slot up on
Hmm.
the top as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, so if you haven't actually seen one, just yeah, put in Commodore SX64 and you'll see on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're very extremely difficult to find.
Hmm.
And the the actual cable from the keyboard to the unit itself, if you lose that, then you might as well throw the whole thing out because just the cable is probably worth about $500-600
Oh my word.
because they're so hard to find. Yeah,
Right, right. That's
yeah, and this
crazy.
is yeah, and this is where it gets crazy with gaming. And I know there's been a lot of angst about price hikes and whatnot
Mm.
in the scene, and obviously as more and more people get back into old school gaming, of course prices are going to be driven up,
Mm.
and that's just natural ways of or our capitalist society, I guess,
Hmm.
is that when things become popular, yeah, of course they're going to go up
Yeah, the
in price.
prices will
So
go. I mean, it's especially with retro gaming because there's a limited amount of everything out there, and if you do want something rare, it's going to get rarer. The more people buy and the more people own. But
look, I know a lot of people that say, "Oh, yeah, no, look, I've stopped because prices have gone ridiculous." But
mm,
you know what? I'm still finding bargains. So
mm.
there's bargains to be had.
How do you mainly source your stuff? Do you kind of like go into sort of like garage sales and that kind of business as well as eBay and?
Yeah, at the start I did hitting garage sales, vintage shops, Salvation Army stores. And look, people always say, "Oh, cash converters, they
Mm.
charge an arm and a leg." And look, to a certain extent, it's true. But I've actually found some really really cool stuff,
Mm.
Nintendo stuff, Sega stuff that way cheaper than eBay. So there are bargains to be had. So always keep an eye out. And eBay for sure. Look, I'm on eBay. I've got alerts set up left, right, and center, and I
Mm.
religiously check them to make sure I don't miss out. And that's how I get things that like my Commodore SX64, which goes for a ton of money. I got it for a fraction of the cost because it came up and came up on my search, and it was a bite. Now I make an offer. I made a ridiculous offer, and the guy accepted it.
Wow.
Done.
Okay. Great.
So
Fantastic.
there's always people saying, yeah, look, no, it's gone ridiculous and prices have been driven up high, and people asking for a game that should be $10, but they're asking for $100. Well, of
Mm.
course you're
Mm.
you're going to laugh that off.
Yeah.
But and that's what I do. You know, life is already serious as it is, and I'm not going to get upset over something that I really want and it's gone some ridiculous price. So be it. I'll just move on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, now look, yeah, I can sympathise. Definitely, prices are going up, but there are still good bargains to be had anywhere and everywhere.
Just gotta hunch around a bit more. That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look, if you're a casual observer and you get on eBay once a blue moon, well, guess what? You're not going to find a bargain.
Mm, mm.
But if like myself, you're on there, you know, just before bed or during the day when I've got a break at work, or God forbid, when I go in the toilet, I take the phone with me. Yes, I am guilty of doing that.
Dangerous territory.
Yeah, and I do check those things, and you never know, and there's always something that comes up. So, but if you're specifically looking for something that is quite rare, then yeah, be prepared to shell out.
So, in terms of your retro collection, what is your rarest and most sort of prized part of the collection? Is it the portable C64?
The SX64 definitely is up there. Another one is the Pioneer Laser Active CLD A100.
Oh my god, I've never heard of that. What is that?
Okay, it's actually a laser disc player which you can put PC Engine and Sega Genesis packs into it, so it can actually transform itself into a Sega Mega Drive or Genesis.
A laser disc player that plays games.
I would say that's probably the rarest thing I've got. By far, because they only made stuff all, and they didn't really take off at all because they were too expensive. They came out in '93 and they were, $1,200 or $1,300, and yeah, and
How much did you pick up yours for?
look, I paid $400 for it, and
That's
that
all
was to
right.
ship, and that was with shipping from America. Yeah, and look, if you get on eBay and type in Pioneer Laser Active, you'll see they go for crazy money, right? And I was never ever going to pay that much, and I thought, look, if and when it does actually drop to a price that I want to get it at, and it has to have, because what people do is they sell the laser player, but they remove the Mega Drive or the PC Engine packs out of them, and then they sell them separately, and they fetch big bucks. So if you sell the parts of it, you can make even more money out of it. So you can interchange it with there's a karaoke pack, there's a Genesis pack, and a PC Engine pack. So yeah, so if you've got Hue cards to play PC Engine games or TurboGrafx games, and all your Genesis carts and Mega Drive carts, or Mega Drive pre-93 carts, the ones that haven't got protection on them,
Right.
will play on it. But the Bally Astrocade, which is a second gen console, the wood veneer on this machine, and it's an absolute beautiful machine. The new one, which is a DVD game player, games player, and that's from the old Atari Jaguar guys and Jeff Minter.
Right.
Now I don't know if you know who Jeff Minter is.
Yeah, I do
But he's
indeed.
a famous developer from the UK, who's still going strong. And look, his Tempest games are phenomenal. So I've got all the Tempest versions on every single format, and the new one has got the Tempest 3000.
Wow. Okay.
Which I don't know if he actually did develop that or he had a hand in it, but on the Jaguar, Tempest 2000 is just great. But yeah, now look, that the Sega CDX, which is like a little mini CD player, which also you can. It takes the carts as well.
It's a very cute machine. Considering when you think about how much space a Mega CD and a Mega Drive together takes, as fun as a unit looks, it takes up a lot of room.
And then you whack on the 32X on top,
Yeah.
and and the thing just looks like it's going to take off for the moon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Atari Portfolio,
Okay.
which now, if you remember, did you ever watch Terminator 2?
Yeah.
Now, do you remember the bit where John Connor and his mate get on the dirt bike and they go to the local
Arcades.
shopping center? Yeah,
Yeah.
and he actually hacks the ATM.
Yeah.
Well, the computer that he's using is an Atari Portfolio.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was actually the very first. I think it was the very first portable or palm top computer back in 1990, released by Atari. Obviously, didn't do too well, but yeah. Now look, I love that little thing, and you can still pick them up for a reasonably good price. I've got a big soft spot for Atari, Commodore, obviously Sega, Nintendo, goes without saying,
Yeah.
but all the other systems that they were the underdog. So the Atari Jaguar, it cops so much shit on social media, and it's like, you know what? If you haven't played it, and if you're just listening to press or you're listening to people's opinion, then until you actually play it, don't bag it. Because and look, and I was one of those people because I used to read all the magazines back in the day, and the the Atari Jaguar got absolutely slagged. And look, to a certain extent, rightly so. The games feel incomplete, and even the system feels like it wasn't fully realized. But no, there's some really, really cool games on it. I'm one of those enthusiasts that I prefer to see hardware than games.
Ah.
So I don't know. On social media, you'll see people have got bookshelves full of games. I actually hide my games. I actually put them in cupboards. I don't want them out. I actually want my systems out because I don't know. It's look, I get the same feeling from both seeing the hardware and the games, but the hardware itself, I don't know what it is, but I see it's like, yeah, I go all wide-eyed and I'm gasping for air, sort of thing. It's like, oh my God, look how beautiful this piece of kit is, and that's what I love being on social media, seeing other people's things that they pick up, and be it games or hardware. It's like, oh wow,
Yeah, yeah.
and the funny thing is that I remember when I first started, when when I was doing, I'll put a photo up, and I thought, oh God, people probably think I'm showing off, but it's not. It's sharing. It's like, oh, check this out, and what does it remind you of? And then someone else puts up a photo of something, that you haven't seen in God knows how long, and you go, oh wow, and this is how I actually met people. I've been on Twitter and social and Facebook for a few years now, and yeah, as I said, I've met a lot of great people, and lots of people that I call my friends now, and seldom do you get anyone being negative. I look, apart from the things are getting too expensive, whatever.
Yeah.
But look, 99% of the time, it's just a fantastic community to be a part of, and it's really, I mean, work's tough, and life's hard as it is, and then I get on there to have a chat to my friends, and I call everyone that I chat to my friends, and yeah, and we have a great time reminiscing, ribbing each other from time to time, obviously. So you got to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And yeah, and really, it actually takes you away from the day to day churn that you have to go through, be it work or doing your house chores or whatever, and then you get a bit of guilty pleasure of being online talking to other like-minded people. So sorry, I've actually gone off on a tangent. You did
That's
ask
okay.
me of
That's okay, dude. No, no.
because I actually didn't get in on any of this stuff until 2012, and it was just sheer, well, I wouldn't say sheer luck. It was my wife. Just yeah, we were on holiday, and I wasn't happy with my current job, which I'm still in. My current day job, and yeah, and she said, look, you're always liking this old stuff, you should go on social media, have a look if anyone's into it. And I thought to myself, who would be into this stuff? No one's into this stuff. They throw Commodore 64s out, and old Segas and Nintendos, and to my surprise I was stunned, actually, when I first started on Twitter. And I've met a lot of people via Twitter, mainly Twitter actually, and Facebook as well. It's given me an escapism. The nostalgia is just overwhelming. I just love it. I can't actually describe it in words, but I can talk about it to the nth degree. And funnily enough, I'm more of a passive gamer. I don't actually sit there and play 6, 7, 8, 10 hours like I used to when I was a kid in the 80s. And having said that, we used to play games and then go outside, kick the footy around, soccer, shoot some hoops, playing cricket. That's what we did. So I remember loading a game on the Commodore 64, which would take anywhere between 10 minutes to 40 minutes. Press load and or press play, sorry, and then go outside and have a few overs of cricket, come back, and hope that the tape worked. And if it worked, great. If it didn't, yeah, rewind, start again, and go outside. And that was that was our childhood, and that's why every time I play on the Commodore 64 or I load games on it, it's just it takes me back to that time.
Well, there's also I think the wonderful thing about the Commodore 64 and loading games, it taught you patience. when you were a kid. You know what I mean? And I guess in your case, it taught you how to multitask, which is pretty good.
It did. And look, and when we discovered that my mum had a small screwdriver that you could actually change the azimuth of the heads, so that way your tapes will load all the time. I thought I was a genius when we figured that one out. And then when we figured out we can dub cassettes to actually pirate games, which I know is a dirty word. Um, we just it just blew our minds, and I remember just going to school and swapping tapes, and then afterwards floppies. But yeah, no, look, that was a dark time. Partly, I guess, a black market in the schoolyard.
I remember that vividly because it used to be. I used to love the fact that you buy a 120-minute long tape and you would have to write down the time codes on the label of like where the game was. I know it was naughty, but it was also quite good fun as well. So was the Commodore 64 then your sort of like first machine when you were a kid? Was that the one that kind of made you kind of get into gaming?
Absolutely. Look, I recall back in the very, very early 80s. Oh, geez, I might be. It's a bit cloudy, but I think it was about 81, 82. Actually, it might have been 82. I remember seeing an Atari 2600 at one of the local stores, which no longer exists, obviously, but they had asteroids going, and I thought, what the hell is this? This looks fantastic. It was, yeah. And I remember just asking my dad, to go and have a look, and we walked in, and I think they were $300. And in '82, that was a lot of money. So I was never going to get the Atari 2600. But my constant nagging, I ended up getting a Hanimex 666T, which is one of those Pong systems.
Was that like the one that kind of you plugged it straight into your TV and it had like the paddle either side? Was it like one bit of plastic with the kind of like controllers either side, or did it have like paddles on it? Or
So it had the main paddle with a round knob, and then it had like a little one, an extra one to actually have a second player to play Pong with. So the main bit was like a long rectangular piece that you could actually, well, you could choose the game, but they were all variants of Pong. It was
right.
They had football, which was pretty much two players versus two players, and you score a goal on either side. They had squash, tennis. And I think the last one was a practice one where you can just practice hitting I guess the ball against the wall.
Yeah.
And look, and the actual sound came out of the unit itself, so it wasn't coming out of the TV. That lasted a few years, which I've still got, and just luckily I've got a few TVs with RF, so just plug it in, and away you go, and just hearing the sound of simple boop boop, and back and forth. Well, I can't do it properly, but it's just I remember this. But the Commodore 64 was definitely my first true love, and it still is my absolute favourite system. But my neighbour had one, and we played decathlon on it, and I was gobsmacked. I was in love, and it took probably about 2 or 3 years being my parents, and then one day after school, I come home, and there it was, the family pack sitting on the bed. I think I cried. I was so happy. I started hugging my sister, my mum, my dad, and yeah.
Beautiful. The family pack, I think when we got our Commodore 64, I think we had like the Ocean movie pack as well as the family pack. It kind of like came with like things like, Rambo, RoboCop, but also then I think the family pack had like a word processor and shoot 'em up construction kit and some other bits and pieces in it.
Oh, sounds like you got the one.
Yeah,
Nice.
what was in the family pack you got?
It was around the time when the America's Cup was coming to Australia, so it was the America's Cup family pack, and it came with Arnie Armchair's How's That Cricket,
Cool.
Arnie Armchair's America's Cup, which I think goes by a lot of names, and that game by far was it took the longest to load. It took exactly 47 minutes
Oh
to
my
load.
gosh.
Yeah, I love playing it. People absolutely bag it. I absolutely love it. It came. What else came with it? International Soccer on cartridge, and Le Mans on cartridge, and paddles. I played those games for a little while. Sorry, and it came with the actual data set as well to load the games, the Arnie Armchair games, because they came on tape. And I didn't get a floppy drive until 1988, just before Christmas. I remember driving to Kmart with my mum just before Christmas. It was a really stinking hot Saturday, and went and got it, and I still remember paying $289 for it for a
Whoa,
1540.
for a floppy drive. Well, I never did the floppy drive in the Commodore 64. I was always the cassette player.
Actually, speaking to a lot of people from the UK, yeah, it was tapes were pretty much dominant. Full stop. Floppies weren't as much. Here, there was a transitional period. So from the mid '80s to about probably late '87, early '88. Yeah, it was tapes, and then after that, it's the floppies came in, and I remember the actual shift. Excuse me, even at school. So yeah, the schoolyard went from swapping tapes to swapping floppies. Yeah, in '88, late '88. So yeah, and I thought, oh wow, I mean, they still take long to load, but nothing like the tapes. But yeah, I thought it was the best thing ever. And then look, when the ST and the Amiga came out with the 3.5, so I thought, oh wow. But look, they were out of reach, especially the Amiga. I had a lot of friends with Amigas, and I never actually upgraded to the Amiga. I actually upgraded to the ST, and purely because it was cheaper. And so I've still got a soft spot for the ST. And actually, I'm sitting here. I'm looking at. I've got a 64 on one side and the ST on the other, in my home office.
So you're sandwiched between the two machines. You're in a machine sandwich
Absolutely.
right now.
Yeah, and
Ah,
people just can't get it through their head. It's like, no, man, if you're going to go Commodore 64, you got to go Amiga. It's the
Amiga.
natural
Yeah,
progression.
yeah.
It's true. Look, I would have loved the Amiga,
Hmm.
but yeah, they were way too expensive, and they never actually cut the costs or the actual price. So I thought, no, look, I'm just going to get an ST eventually, and which I did, and I really, really liked it actually.
I did actually upgrade to the Amiga from the Commodore 64, but I had a wibble in the middle because I think I ended up going to Mega Drive for a while before going back to the home computer. But I think what happened was, for me, it was things like The Secret of Monkey Island on the Amiga just devoured my time for so many months. But a friend across the road had an Atari ST, and I think they had things like Robocop, which was so close to the arcade. I just went over there and sort of kept playing it. God, what other games do they have on the ST? What's kind of like your top games on the ST?
On the ST, look, I really love playing Stunt Car Racer and World Games. Hostages is another one by
Hmm.
Infogrames. That was great. Leatherneck, really love playing Leatherneck, which is like a Ikari Warriors type game. There was a few shoot 'em ups. I think Captain Blood or Blood Money? I can't remember. I think it was Blood Money. Yeah, that was a great shoot 'em up. Um, and look, it pretty much because I used to love reading the Brit mags, so I was a massive Zap and CMVG fan. So I used to always read those, and I would always look at. Obviously, the first thing you look at is the graphics,
Yeah.
and the Commodore 64 version, and you look at the Amiga or ST version, and go, oh man, and I'll be so deflated. But then I'll look at the specky graphics, and I'm like, oh well, at least it's not green. Whatever it is.
Oh yeah, at least it's got a few more tones of different colours in the sprites, not just one
That's
colour per sprite. Yeah, no, absolutely.
absolutely.
Well,
But
I always thought that the even on the Amiga and the ST and whatnot, next gen after the Commodore 64, Amstrad and Spectrum and all that sort of stuff, I don't think they ever got the playability quite as spot on as they did in the Commodore 64. There's something about the games on the C64 that are just so playable.
absolutely.
They're such a joy to play. Whereas the Amiga always felt a little bit stiff, unless it was on the point and click stuff like Monkey Island or Beneath the Steel Sky and Indiana Jones and the Flames of Atlantis and all that sort of stuff. But I always thought the Commodore 64 just felt better playability.
Absolutely. I mean, especially the SID chip, the actual sound that it
Oh,
would pump out.
yeah.
Nothing. I mean, obviously Amiga and ST have great sound, but listening to the actual SID, especially Mr. Hubbard
Hmm.
and Jerome Tell, anything by those guys, and obviously there's Mr. Galway and the rest of them. But
Hmm.
yeah, I play World Games on the Atari ST. It looks great, but it doesn't have a patch on the 64 version in regard to sound. Especially, I don't know if you ever played World Games, Epic's World Games.
No, I
Uh,
haven't. I was I was scratching my head when you said the name, and I was a bit like, I'm
uh,
really sure I've not played that one. Uh,
okay, so Epic's back in the 80s, they released World Games, Summer Games, Winter Games, California Games.
California games and winter games, yes, yes.
Yeah, and World Games was actually yeah. So if you haven't played it, I would urge you to definitely play it. So it had all these weird sports, but the very first event was weight lifting. So, and there's a bit where if you leave your player down crouched to pick up the bar on the 64 version, it makes this sound where he wiggles his hands around.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the ST, it does it, but the sound isn't there. So it's just little things like that. Just yeah, that the 64 has over the 16-bit machines, and
Yeah.
obviously the games look sharper.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, the word you use the word stiff. You're right. It does feel stiff. It feels too oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It looks too clean, too yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, playability, graphics nice and clean and crisp, but no. There's something down and dirty about the 64 that makes it so playable and so wonderful. And yeah, the SID chip. Oh, it's just a joy to plug that into a TV, the C64, and even just listen to the loading music. You get like the classic Ocean loader, so good. Because I hadn't played the C64 for oh gosh. See, I got myself a new, I say a new one, I got myself a machine, I think it was one of the first machines I got when I started my retro collection, the C64, because The Last Ninja is my all-time favourite game, hands down, the original for the C64, so I bought myself the C64 and the Last Ninja 1 and Last Ninja 2, and I just remember plugging it in on a Sunday afternoon, and the beautiful soundtrack coming through the SID chip through the TV. That was a really good Sunday.
And that's exactly why I love retro gaming, because of that, right? Because I guarantee you would have had a smile from ear to ear.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just yeah,
Yeah,
it just
great.
hits you. It just hits you so hard, and it's just affection for it. I don't know. It's I guess when you talk to other like-minded people like yourself, you do know what each of us is actually feeling at that moment, because we all actually feel the same. It takes us to a time when yeah, in our childhood, when we were carefree and enjoying life. I guess, I mean, we're still enjoying life, but we've got responsibility now, and I wish I had time that I could just not go to work today and skip work and whack something into the Commodore 64 and play that. But yeah,
There's bills that need to be paid, unfortunately.
yeah, and unfortunately, well, yeah, bills to be paid, and some money on the side to buy the next thing
The
that's going
next
to bring
thing.
back nostalgia. Yeah.
Oh man, well on that note, dude, you got to tell me how, so 2000, you say 2012 that you got back into the whole retro gaming. What was the catalyst? What was it that kicked it all off?
The catalyst was there was two things. The Dreamcast. I remember just I think I was playing virtual tennis on, or maybe it might have been on the PS3, and I thought, geez, I really loved playing it on the Dreamcast. So the Dreamcast that I actually had back in 2000, I sold it to a friend, and they've actually still got it, which is great.
Cool.
So I went on eBay. I found one cheap, and it came with a few games. I think Virtual Tennis 1 and 2 was part of that. And when I got it, it was just that feeling of, oh yeah, I remember this, and yeah, just that sudden hit of nostalgia. And then I started thinking. I thought, I've always wanted all these other systems that I never could afford back in the day, because I went from the Commodore 64 ST, and then I actually forgot about computers. I went straight to the consoles. I went to the Sega Mega Drive, Super Nintendo. I went back to the Amiga CD32, which was a pile of crap. Well, back in the day, I thought it was a pile of crap. I absolutely love it now. Yeah, and then the PS1. I didn't go to the Saturn. PS1, Nintendo 64, and I absolutely love the Nintendo 64. Love that
It's
machine.
a
Putting a
beautiful
lot of
machine.
hours into that. Yeah. And the Dreamcast. And then I sort of lost my way. I wasn't keen on the GameCube, wasn't keen on the PlayStation 2. I just wasn't keen on gaming at all.
Wow.
So the
So,
Dreamcast was.
what about all those systems though? Were you, as you were upgrading, were you selling to upgrade, or did you kind of hang on to the old systems?
No, it was always the only thing I ever hung on to was the Hanimex and the Commodore 64, and the rest I pretty much just sold and yeah, to fund the next big thing. And yeah, I did
That's
that
just the way.
until yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And look, yeah, so in the early 2000s, sort of lost my mojo for gaming, and then I think I saw Halo on the Xbox, and yeah, so I got back into gaming again. But it retro gaming really, yeah, as I said, it was probably about 2009 or 10 when I thought about the Dreamcast. I got that, and then I started thinking about the other systems, but I sort of put it to the side. It was like, oh yeah, it's great to have a hit of this, and I'll just keep on gaming with the new stuff. Yeah, and then it was I always had a thing for the PC Engine, and I remember back in might have been late '88 or early '89, seeing the grey market ads in the Brit mags for this thing called the PC Engine, and I thought, wow! And I remember seeing R-Type and Devil Crash, and thinking, oh man, I'd love to have one of these consoles. Obviously, could never get one, and so that sort of started the ball rolling on getting consoles that I've always wanted to have, but I could never afford back in the day. So yeah, and 200 pieces of hardware later.
Oh my word, really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. Very similar thing to me as well. Like, I suddenly realized when I got the Commodore 64, I suddenly realized that, oh, hey, actually, yeah, I can actually afford to buy myself that Nintendo Entertainment System I always kind of wanted when I was a kid. And oh, I remember the Sega Saturn, and my mate had one of them, and I really liked that machine, and I like these games, or maybe I'll pick up one of those as well. And that's how it kind of happened. A very similar thing happened to me. I could suddenly get all these old machines, but so yeah, it's amazing how it escalates from there. But 200, oh my word, that's fantastic.
I
So
was I was actually shocked. Because I do have a database of all my kit, and I was actually shocked when I looked down because I never actually took note, and it said 205 pieces of hardware, and I thought, oh geez, okay, all right. Now I know why we had to move back in late 2012 to our new place because the old place was just it couldn't house everything, and yeah.
So have you got is it basically the ultimate sort of retro gaming man cave? Is that what do you have like a room where it's just all set up, ready to go?
Yeah, I've got two rooms. One in the house, which is my office. I've got an arcade machine. I've got the Amiga 1200, the 64 ST, Vectrex, and Atari XE computer in here. Virtual Boy. I'm just looking around the room, and then I've got the stuff that I haven't got plugged in that doesn't fit in this room or in the garage. Yeah, Neo Geo, a couple of extra PC engines just in case. A Sega Mark III, which I absolutely love the Sega Mark III. And look, yeah, the garage was my wife's idea. So when we came and saw the house, yeah, I saw that it had a garage, but I didn't actually think anything of it because I thought I'll just park my car in there.
Right.
And when we moved in, yeah, my wife's like, "Oh, no, we got to redo the garage, as your game room." So she had all the ideas, and yeah, no, look, it's decked out like a house really inside, so you can't even tell it's a garage.
You're a very lucky man.
Absolutely, I count my blessings. Yeah, she is an absolute wonderful person, and yeah, I love her to bits. She's definitely my soulmate, and yeah, she's the one that encourages me, and yeah, so I blame her for all the stuff that I've got. It's great. It's yeah, no, look, she had all the ideas. Yeah, I just thought, oh, that sounds great, and I just had this picture in my mind. Oh yeah, just a few things here and there, and no, the way it's actually come out, I'm very, very happy with it. I've got pretty much everything plugged in. So this is in the garage. All the consoles are plugged in. There's a pinball machine in there. There's a cocktail table. There's a Neo Geo arcade machine as well. A Dreamcast kiosk, which I found on the side of the road, and that to me it was a happy and a sad day, and the reason being is that it was a day that we found out that my dad had cancer.
Oh gosh! Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it was actually on the way to hospital to find out that I was driving my dad to hospital because he had his biopsy, and yeah, on the way to hospital, I'm driving past and I see a kiosk on the side of the road. I saw the swirl, the Dreamcast swirl, and I went, no, that can't be it. And I thought, no, I've got to go back. And we were quite early to get to hospital. So I just thought, no, I'm just going to go around and have another look to make sure that I wasn't seeing things. And yeah, lo and behold, it's a Dreamcast kiosk just in there. And yeah, I was driving my wife's Golf, which luckily she had blankets. And yeah, this thing was hanging at the back of the hatch, and my dad holding onto it while I'm driving like 10 k's an hour to get it back to the house.
Oh my word!
Yeah. So it was a it was a bittersweet day actually. So I was happy, and obviously I was hoping that we'd get good news at the hospital, but unfortunately it
Right. How's
wasn't
your
to be. But
how is your dad? How are
he
things?
he actually passed away last year.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But look, it's it wasn't a good time. But I towards the end it was getting quite difficult to see him the way he was, and yeah, so I've got a lot of happy memories with my dad,
Hmm.
and yeah, look, I remember playing international soccer. It was probably the only game that my dad ever played with me on the Commodore 64. So I used to nag him as a kid, just come on, Dad, let's play. So because I was sick and tired of playing against a computer, I wanted to play against a human, and yeah, my dad actually volunteered, so I would absolutely kick his butt. Uh, he had no clue how to control. I would try and teach him, but yeah, no, but that was, I mean, little things like that, and
Yeah.
yeah, and the fact that he's the one that convinced the family to buy me a Commodore 64,
Hmm.
which my mum actually only told me recently. I thought it was I don't know who came up with the idea, but no, she said, no, your dad said, no, look, he's doing well at school. He's a good kid. He deserves a Commodore 64. And I thought, wow, that's fantastic.
Oh
So
gosh, well that just makes that game and that system even more special to you as
ab-
well, which is
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, no, look, yeah,
The Commodore 64 then, wow, is now definitely takes an extra special place in your heart, and that's
absolutely, it does. It does. Three things do actually: the Commodore 64, the Dreamcast kiosk, and the Neo Geo arcade machine. That was the last thing my dad came with me to go and pick up.
uh,
And yeah, that was another. Yeah, it was one of those things where they were going out,
mhm.
and they were actually going to the place where I had to go anyway to pick up the arcade machine. And I remember my parents were like, "Oh, don't go there by yourself. You don't know, these people." And it's like, "Yeah, relax, I'll be okay." And my dad said, "No, no, we'll come and help." And look, I ended up. It wasn't actually that heavy, the arcade cab, but yeah, my dad's got a trailer. Used his trailer to put it up there, and they followed me home to make sure that it wouldn't bounce out of the trailer, even though I had it tied down so it wouldn't move. But yeah, I mean, it's those type of things that that I cherish really, and if it's one thing that I love about retro gaming or classic gaming is talking about it and actually meeting people. And when we do get together with other people,
Mhm.
because I go to a few club meets,
Mhm.
we probably spend 99% of the time talking
Mhm.
and 1% playing, and that's the honest truth. Yeah, we might play for a few minutes and then it's like, oh, do you remember this, or do you remember that? And we're doing exactly what we're doing right now. Just talk about those moments in time, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, and yeah, it just triggers all these wonderful things in your head. And yeah, I'm absolutely hooked on it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting what you were saying about like when you meet up with people, how like you spend most of the time talking and then the minimum amount of time playing, classic retro games. But the fact is that old games just don't last as long as modern games. You know, you can pick up and play so quickly and easily. If I'm sitting down with my brother and we're like, okay, let's whack on the Mega Drive and have a quick, Streets of Rage session, and then after that we might play for 10 minutes, and if we sort of like die or we don't get where we want to, then it's like, okay, let's whack on the Sega Saturn and let's do like I don't know, a Daytona race. You know what I mean? Like you can just go bang, 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 bang through games so quickly.
I actually blame those games because unfortunately, I'm not an RPG or adventure game fan.
Uh huh.
I can't sit there and grind away for hours.
Mm.
I grew up on arcades. I grew up on quick gaming
Mm.
fixes.
Mm.
Um, and look, obviously, back in the day with the Commodore 64, you would get a hack disc, so with a crack train with trainers on it. So I would actually play through cheating, obviously, with
Mm.
infinite lives and whatnot, infinite ammo, playing Ikari Warriors or whatever it
Mm.
might have been at the time. But look, I could never sit down and actually play any of those great adventure type games or role playing games.
Mm.
So I'm not a Zelda fan.
Not
Even
even
though
classic Zelda on the NES. Oh.
no, absolutely not. For me, the NES was Super Mario.
Oh, which one? Because I'm a bit of a fanboy for Super Mario 2, I have to say.
Amazingly enough, no, it's not Super Mario Brothers 2. look, Super Mario Brothers, but Super Mario World, I would say, and that is if you are going to ask what my favorite game of all time is, Super Mario World is up there, and Super Mario
Okay.
Brothers. I've played them to, I can't even add up how many hours I've pumped in, and
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously the same thing over and over again, but I just love it. It's just the perfect game. I love platformers. I love puzzle games. I love shoot 'em ups, beat 'em ups. I absolutely love beat 'em ups. Fighting games, driving games, but yeah, RPG or adventure games. I could just not get into. So there was a few cinemaware games. Rocket Ranger, I think, was one that I remember just putting on because I was amazed by the graphics. And then when I thought, oh no, this is one of these games I've got to sit down and actually play for ages, I thought, forget it, off, next. And yeah, so and I can't bring myself to play games that take a while to play, and my wife does. So I watch her play, and it's absolutely great to watch her play. I'm thinking, wow, I would have given up by now. So she gets stuck, but she grinds away, grinds away, grinds away, and she gets past it. Whereas I would have given up.
What's your wife's favorite sort of adventure game or RPG to play?
Now, look, she's a massive Tomb Raider fan.
Oh, really? Okay. I love. I mean, Tomb Raider. For me, it's Last Ninja. Then it goes Lara Croft. I love those games.
She's a massive fan of Alex Kidd and Wonder Boy, and she tells me that she I'll use the word clocked because that's what we used to say back in the day. So when you actually finished a game, you clocked it. Alex Kidd, and she's an absolute gun. Wonder Boy games and Alex Kidd. Resident Evil. Oh wow, no, she absolutely puts me to shame because the only game I've completed properly without cheating is Double Dragon in the arcades.
Oh, really? Okay. That's an achievement in
Which
itself,
is
man.
I threw so many 20-cent pieces into that machine, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. Especially obviously playing with a friend. But yeah, Double Dragon is definitely up there in my top 5 or 10.
What's your favorite console port of Double Dragon?
Um, I'll say the Sega Mega Drive. Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Because
Mega Drive.
I'm a bit of a sucker for the NES port. I know it's sort of like very low key. It's a beautiful little
Yes,
8-bit version of it. I
it
know that.
is. It is. I'm sorry. You're 100% right. Yes, it is. Yes,
Ah.
it is because and I'm so adamant about it is that I didn't have a Nintendo when it first came out here, which was in '87. But my cousin had a cousin from his other side, and he would bring it over. We would all get together for New Year's, and he would always bring his Nintendo with him, and he had RC Pro Am, Super Mario Brothers, and he had Double Dragon. And I remember playing Double Dragon, thinking, "Oh wow!" And then when I got the Commodore 64 version, I was so disappointed.
Oh man, I don't think I ever played it on the
Oh,
C64.
dude, don't. It is absolute rubbish. My
Okay.
sister bought it for me. It was her. She used to work part time in a grocery store, and my sister's older, but she used to always look after me, and would actually spoil me and buy me games. And she bought me Thunderblade, which I absolutely
Oh
love.
yeah,
And then she,
Thunderblade kicked ass on the
yeah, it
C64.
did
That's great.
absolutely. And then Double Dragon, look, beautiful box and presentation. And then when it loaded, I just went, "What the hell is this rubbish?" And look, and it still hurts. Even I talk about it on plenty of podcasts, and it's an in joke now in the community that they just bring up Double Dragon on the Commodore 64, and I just go, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
don't even bother."
Okay.
But you're right. On the NES, it was great.
Yeah, the second one as well was really good. I really liked the Revenge. I thought that was great on the NES. When I started my collection, I kind of made a vow to myself to kind of try to sort of get as many NES games as possible. And I've got this crazy sort of thing where I can't just do carts. It has to be boxed NES games.
Okay. This is interesting because now, if I find it obviously boxed, great, but I just want the game. I just want the game, and that way I save myself a lot of money, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only reason why I'm so sort of like anal about it is just because I never had one when I was younger, and I just love the NES box art. There's something about the NES box art and the NES boxes, and all that sort of business that I just really enjoy. I mean, the carts look great and they're great shapes, and obviously I want the games as well. But I've just been really diligent. Like, no, have to have cart and box. Box and cart. Can't just have cart. And so far I've done okay. I must admit that I've spent quite a lot of money. Obviously, I haven't even counted how many games I've got, but I've started slowing down on the NES because with the NES for me there was titles that I really wanted to get, and then I might start slipping into titles that I'm not so fussed about, but just to keep the collection going. So like I had to get like the three Mario's, the three Double Dragons, Battletoads, DuckTales, all of the above, the top line sort of games for the NES, and I have slipped a little bit, but yeah. So sorry, that I just went on a tangent then, but I had to get that out of my system.
Not at all. It was actually going to lead me to. I was actually going to ask, do you collect to complete, or just grab the games that you really wanted back in the day
Just
that you couldn't
grab,
have?
yeah, exactly that. Just grabbing the games that I couldn't have back in the day. Yeah, I don't think I could collect to complete for numerous reasons, financial and sort of space. And also, I just think, yeah, no, more because I want to play the games, so I'm more excited about getting games that I'm really interested in rather than just getting a game to say, right, tick that off the list, if you get what I mean.
Yeah,
How
no,
about
I'm the
you?
same.
Oh, you're the
No, I'm
same,
the
right?
same. Look,
Cool.
the only thing that I have got complete is the Atari Lynx,
Oh,
which is
wow.
my favorite handheld.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I've got complete. The rest, no, nowhere near.
Mm.
Um, and the stuff that I'm buying now, especially for the Commodore 64, is the stuff that I feel bad that I pirated back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Oh,
know
right,
that
so you're
money's not.
making amends. You're like, hey,
Yeah, I'm
guys,
making
look.
amends. Yeah, obviously it's not going to the people that created the games, but it makes me feel a little bit better knowing that okay, I've actually bought this game legitimately now because I loved playing it back then, and I didn't pay a cent for it apart from the actual disc or the tape or whatever it
Mhm.
was on, and yeah, so it's a bit of a yeah, a guilt thing, I guess.
So how do you approach the whole sort of collecting then? So do you kind of allot yourself like, okay, do you do X number of games a month, or is it just?
No, I wish I did.
Mm.
Would that would actually make it easier, or no, it actually wouldn't make it easier. There's always that point in time. If you say, "Look, I'm going to spend say $100 for this month,"
Mm.
right, and you've spent your $100, and there's still 3 days left in the month, and you get on eBay and you see something at a fantastic price, and you think to yourself, "Oh, geez, why did I spend all that?" So, for that reason, I don't actually, yeah, budget or plan out. I just go whatever comes in my head.
Hmm.
I just go, yep, I got to look on eBay. Obviously, first thing on eBay, then Gumtree and
Hmm.
whatever other sites there are. Get on forums as well.
Okay, so it's as and when the moment takes you, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, look,
Dangerous, dangerous.
it is absolutely. Well, that's why, as I said, yeah, I've got just over 200 pieces of hardware, and I've got games for all those.
Hmm.
But yeah, now look, I've reached a point where I don't. There's nothing. Well, there's no system that I really want. So if you were going to ask, is there a holy grail
Hmm.
that's missing? Not really. I'd
Hmm.
love Iconic's Slipstream, which
Hmm.
never made it out of out of the UK.
Hmm.
Um, but that won't happen. And yeah, the only other thing I can think of is I wouldn't mind the C64 GS, the console,
Yeah.
which was obviously crap, but yeah, I'd love to have one of those. But they just go for yeah, they fetch big bucks these
Silly
days.
money,
So
silly money.
yeah, and they were throwing them out back in 1990, 91, and they
Mm.
were going for like $10. So yeah, whoever stocked up, good on you.
See, this
Very
is
cool.
when we need to invent a time machine, and we can jump back, and that'll help
Yeah,
all of us kind
yeah,
of achieve.
hindsight.
So, so yeah, it's interesting that for you, the main focus of the collection is the hardware, because I think a lot of people, it is getting, well, I presume, well, I can only kind of save myself in this really is like, I've got the systems and I've only got one of each. And I have met other collectors who obviously collect like, oh, we want a Generation 1 Mega Drive and a Generation 2 and the same for the Saturns, I'm not one of those guys, but maybe are you the same? Do you have to get the generations of each system or?
No, no, not really. Look, for me, it was Mega Drive, the original Mega Drive that came out. So that's the one that I've got affinity to.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm not one to go, oh, but now I need a Mark II or another generation of the same console. No, no,
Yeah.
it's just the stuff that that I grew up with, or B that I really really wanted, but I could never ever afford. So
Got you.
yeah, no, yeah, it's the hardware that I've got brings me a lot of joy, and
Mm.
the stuff that I've got on it is the stuff that I really, really wanted to play. And because I'm not a completionist, I don't care if I've got a complete library of whatever.
Hmm.
As long as I've got the games that I really, really like playing on those systems, then I know those systems are going to get a play rather than gather dust or stay in boxes. So
Yeah, yeah. What's the most you paid for a game and what system?
I knew this question was going to come up. It, it's for the Intellivision, believe it or not,
Hmm.
and it's Masters of the Universe.
Oh,
I'm a
wow. Okay.
massive I'm a massive fan of Masters of the Universe, and if you go to Ausretrogamer, it's the
I
leading
saw a
post on
post on there
there.
today about the old toy sets and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Apart from video games and old video games, it's I'm a huge Master of the Universe fan and a Star Wars fan,
Mm.
original Star Wars,
Mm.
not the latter crap. So I'm a huge fan of Mattel's Master of the Universe range,
Hmm.
and yeah, that's the other thing. As a kid, I always kept my toys. My video games, my Game and Watches, all in neat condition,
Oh,
not
wow.
pristine,
Okay. Okay.
played. But now, look, I'll give you an example. If other kids or friends came over and they started bending the legs on my Master Universe figurines, I'll absolutely flip out and go, no, you're either going to play nicely or you won't play at all, sort of thing. So I was a bit anal, but it was. I think my dad always said to me, if you look after things, they'll look after you. So
It's a good.
he said, well, if you break this, you're not going to get another one. So that's why I thought, well, it was so hard to get things because my parents were on minimal wage, and I didn't have all the things that I wanted to, but I had enough, right? And I
Mm.
had an imagination. I used to use the couch as the planet Eternia, and
Uh,
create all these battles and whatnot, and look, the same thing even with the video games. Playing things like Wizard of War, right, which
mm.
is a pretty simplistic game, 2D. Game, but the imagination that is, I don't know, it invokes in your mind,
Mm.
and even looking at a box art of a game, you look at it and it takes you to, I don't know, to another place.
Mm.
So regardless of if the game does or doesn't, but the fact that everything that goes with it, the art and whatnot, and the story,
Hmm.
it just it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think it may be lost on kids of this generation. So they're used to everything looking you know amazingly fantastic.
Oh,
Um,
realistic nowadays as well. That's the thing with the next gen
yeah,
consoles, especially with 3D graphics. I mean, that's another thing. That jump that happened back in the day from going from a Mega Drive to an N64 or to the Saturn or to the PlayStation. That really was a leap
and
in gaming
that was a
terms.
death knell. Yeah, that was a
Mm.
death knell of the arcades, really, because the reason you're going to the arcade is because you couldn't have that experience at home, right?
Exactly, yeah. That
Yeah,
32-bit kind of like beautiful massive pixels, 101 different enemies on screen. The whole experience is a lot more different on the arcades, yeah.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
why, yeah. So that was a bit of a bummer when arcades started to die.
Mm.
Or sorry, there was the odd one here and there with Daytona,
Hmm.
or something that you couldn't get the same experience of at home. But then people were releasing steering wheels and things for your consoles anyway, so you didn't have to go and
Mm.
play Daytona in the arcades anymore. So yeah, that
Mm.
was a sad time, really.
Okay, so that's been your biggest spend in terms of a game then, that game for that system.
Yeah, so marrying the two things that I loved the most as a kid, and yeah, video games and Master of the Universe. So.
Hanimex. Have you are you actually going out to collect all the Master Universe sort of and He-Man related games for all the systems? Is that part of your collection as well?
You know what? I thought about that, and if I do that, it's probably going to drive me nuts. Because look, the 2600, the Atari 2600 version also fetches big bucks. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I honestly, I'd love to, but I'd rather use that money for to put it towards another pinball machine, for instance, or yeah.
Fair
So that's the
dues.
way. That's what I think. I think it's easy to get caught up in the moment,
Hmm.
and which I've done plenty of times, and I've bought something and I've gone, um, but yeah, probably the last, I would say, 6 7 months, I've tried to taper that down so that way I don't get into the moment of the heart ruling over the head and sort of thing. So yeah, I tend to sort of step back and go, well, but there are things that as soon as I see, I don't even have to think. I know that I want this. It's at a great price, and I'm probably not going to see it ever again at that price. Bang, done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there is still that element, definitely, but that comes from experience. That comes from looking at things, knowing what the going rate is. Yeah, so and I actually get enjoyment out of that. So I call it the thrill of the chase, which I do a few stories on the website about that. So yeah, I get a massive thrill, and yeah, especially when I go to an old market or an open air market, and I find something, it's like, oh wow.
Ausretrogamer, when did you decide to sort of take the hobby stroke passion and turn it into a website and get really involved in the whole scene?
Well, that actually happened on that fateful day on holiday with my wife in early January 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when she was saying get on social media, and I thought, well, I don't want to use my real name, right? I
Mm.
thought I got to think of something, so I threw out Australian Retro Gamer, and it didn't actually fit
Mm.
because I was never. Up until then, I mean, I've heard of obviously on Facebook, I've been on there like as myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought, oh yeah, I'll try Australian Retro Gamer, but it didn't actually fit. So Twitter, there's an actual limit on how many characters you can have. So I thought, oh, I've got to shorten this. What am I going to shorten it to? So I did Oz Retro Gamer,
Mm-hmm.
and it fits. So that was my persona on Twitter, and I did the same thing on Facebook. However, for some reason, Facebook it actually fits Australian Retro Gamer, but then I thought I want to have the same name across all platforms so people don't get confused
Mm.
and whatnot. And yeah, and people were actually asking, "Have you got a website? Have you got a website?" And I thought, you know what? Yeah, I will actually create something because I've got a lot of stuff in my head that I want to get out. And yeah, because those early days being on Twitter, there was yeah, I was getting a lot of questions about stuff from the 70s and from the 80s. And as I said, I'm a historian. I love the history and the the lesser known facts of gaming from that era. So yeah, people wanted to know more about that. And I thought, well, yeah, and they were saying, well, you should you should get a website going, a blog, whatever, and just get this stuff down. And yeah, so I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot, and always like to write, and yeah, that's the way that grew. And yeah, I've got my wife helping out as well, so
Mm-hmm.
she's right into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
She's obviously funny enough is Ausretrogamer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever if you see on the about page, you'll see her avatar on there. She's Miss Pac-Man,
Okay.
and I'm obviously the Galaga shit. But yeah, and that's because yeah, Galaga is another one of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, but that's yeah. Again, it's an escapism. So it was a complete thing. I think for me, it was like getting on social media,
Mm-hmm.
having a persona, and I thought, well, you know what, this actually uh, this is actually me,
Mm-hmm.
or yeah. Um, so I thought I'll stick with that. But funnily enough, I remember someone from the US thought I was a US retro gamer,
Ah, okay.
as in, I am yeah, United States retro gamer. No, it's Oz as in Australia. So that was funny. Oh, that was quite clever. But
So, I mean, that must have taken up so much time as well. Does it still take up a lot of time? And how do you sort of regulate and sort of keep it all up and running and still find time for yourself, man?
yeah, no, look, it is a labour of love. Obviously,
Mm.
there's no to be made out of it. And anyone that does blogging or have their websites monetized in any way, shape, or form, yeah, there's no money in it. So it is a lot of my time. And I would say I would spend, anywhere between 40 to 60 hours a week on it, at least. And that's on top of my day job. And obviously, the fees that go with registering every year. And I just noticed that because the Australian dollar's gone so far down that my fees to renew for another year have skyrocketed. So that was a bit of a surprise. But now, look, if I was doing it for money, I wouldn't be doing it at all. So I'm doing it for the passion and for the love of it, and the fact that I've met so many awesome people, and it looks like I will keep on meeting awesome people like yourself, and just take pleasure. You just can't put money on this sort of thing. It's priceless to me. So yeah.
It's so nice to hear the pride in your voice talking about it. I think it's a great website, and it was a beacon to me when I was making the move to Australia. So keep up the good work, dude.
That is great to hear. I'm really, really rapt to actually hear. So when I first started, I thought if one or two people read it, I'll be rapt. So the fact that I've seen, obviously I keep an eye on things, how they're going. So if things aren't going well, obviously I won't be writing. But or as in change what I'm doing. But yeah, no, it's been awesome. So year on year, the traffic to the site's been great, and articles get well received, and try and keep them light. And I know people don't have time to read pages of stuff. What I love to do is, if I had more time, is to write some of those bigger pieces that do take a while to research. Like I'd love to do pieces on forgotten systems or systems that people don't know about, like the Bally Astrocade, the Pioneer Laser Active, because I've got a lot of stuff in my head and a lot of magazines and books from a time that I could actually, grab information from and actually put it together, rather than people going to Wikipedia. And I noticed Wikipedia, most of it's actually pretty good, but there's a fair few inaccuracies in there. So I'd love to spend a lot of time researching and putting a big article together, I guess. But
dude, you should write a book. You should do a full book called Ausretrogamer Forgotten Consoles or something like that. People would buy it. That'd be amazing.
Oh, you reckon get it on Kickstarter and see how it goes?
Yeah, I reckon there's a following. Oh, dude, well, look, that is a wonderful way to end. Thank you, Alex. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you, and hopefully I'll get to do it again sometime soon.
Thanks, Ben. You too, mate.
Take care, buddy. So there we are. That was Alex of Ausretrogamer. I forgot to say apologies for the audio quality shift towards the end of that podcast. Unfortunately, Alex's router decided to play up towards the end, but he gave me a call back and we managed to get an extra 20 minutes in, just finishing up on various topics that we're talking about when it came to retro gaming. So yes, apologies for that, but I'm sure you'll agree that was a wonderful chat with him. He was very open about his experiences with gaming and how important some of those experiences are to him. So thank you ever so much, Alex. And yes, please do check out the Ausretrogamer website, www.ausretrogamer.com. Check him out on Twitter as well. They're also on Facebook. And hit him up. He is a lovely guy. And if you want to chat about retro gaming, he is a brilliant person to talk to. Okay, thank you ever so much for listening to the podcast. Now, I'm at a bit of a loss because I need other people to talk to. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you're a fellow collector, please drop me a line. Message me up on the Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter is @thatbencampbell. And, if you're up for having a chat and being on an episode, let me know. And let's Skype, or let's meet up, or let's do whatever. But I need people to talk to. I love talking about retro games. I love talking about gaming in general. I love nerding out about anything that is fun to nerd out on. So please get in touch if you'd like to have a chat and appear on an episode of the podcast. I would really appreciate it. And I'll just, I really like the conversation. Okay, guys and girls, I'm your friend Ben Campbell, and I hope you tune into another episode soon. Take care. Goodbye.